Hi, welcome to week 9 of Writing Proposals and Grants. You are now two-thirds of the way into the class. I know you're probably having a ton of assignments from all of your other classes. Around the middle of the semester, it gets pretty busy for most of you. You probably noticed that I know that you noticed because I sent you an email that I moved back the deadline for the grant proposal assignment to give you an extra week to work on things, and I hope that that's helpful to you. I also did a call on Saturday with some of you, which I recorded. So I would encourage everybody to go into Zoom and listen to that recording so that you can hear the discussion we had about the needs section, the project description, and the organizational background. I have reviewed all that you have put on the forums already, and I think that you're moving along nicely on the proposals. I have a few notes I want to give to you about the grant proposal today, and also give you a heads up on what's coming up this week. So relative to the grant proposal, there's just some key things that were common errors in the proposals. The organizational backgrounds were all pretty solid and important. The needs section is actually one of the most challenging sections to write for a proposal. And every time I teach this class or any other of my grant proposal writing classes, students struggle with this section the most. Part of the struggle is to try to make the needs section totally focused on the need in the community. What that means is it should not talk about your organization at all, and it also shouldn't talk about what you're planning to do. So as you notice, the needs section is located between the organizational background and the project description. So what's in the organizational background should lead right into the need. You should have established already that your organization is the best organization to tackle this particular need. Right after the needs section is the project description, which is what you're going to do should you get the money from the foundation. So you don't need to put any of that information in your need. So need should solely focus on what's the need in the community. It should not say anything about your organization, and it shouldn't say anything about what you're planning to do to solve the problem, because that's the next section. And if you write this well, they all lead they tell a story, they lead into each other. So first you say who you are and how great you are. Second, you say that there's this big problem in the community. And third, you say, here's how we're going to solve it. The next section, the project description, is actually also one of the hardest sections to write. So you actually had two of the hardest sections to write this week. The project description really is how you're going to solve the problem you just laid out in the needs section. And the needs section, by the way, ought to have statistics. You can footnote them or you can cite them in some kind of way, but you need to have some statistics on the problem to justify it being a pressing problem that needs to be solved. In the project description, one of the things you really want to do is you want to start that project description with an opening sentence that says, X, Y, and Z organization is applying to X, Y, and Z Foundation for $50,000 in order to solve X problem. And you want to have an opening paragraph that really lays out for your reader kind of a 30,000-foot view of what's coming. So it's how much money you're asking for and what are you going to do with it. So that first paragraph should be 3 or 4 sentences. It's a summary of the project. Then you can begin to go into some of the details of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And it is really important that you really think through every logical step involved in doing what it is that you're going to do. So those were some of the key improvements I would suggest in almost everybody's grant. That's part one of what I want to talk about. Secondly, I also want to make sure that you understand that I've laid out specific requirements for how this should be done. It needs to be double spaced. It should be an Arial and 12 point. So you need to make sure you follow these kind of instructions. If you don't follow them, foundations will summarily reject your proposal. So this class is a practice in how do you follow the exact requirements. That also goes for the headings and the areas that need to be in your grant and the order that the grant needs to go in. Because part of what I'm doing is having you experience what it means to write for a foundation in the way that the foundation wants you to write. So those are some of the key points. I want to talk for a moment about peer editing. I know that you're starting to edit each other's work, which I think is a really good exercise in your seeing what is effective and not effective in what people have written. And I particularly is a good way to learn about the needs section. Look at your fellow group members' needs and see have they talked about the organization and also how they're going to solve the problem as opposed to just focusing on need in the community. So really take a look at those things really closely. The peer review is really important for you developing as a writer and also for you helping your fellow classmates to develop as writers. So I want you to be substantive in that. That means that if you think there's formatting problems or proofreading problems in the proposal, just make one comment that says, I think you need to format and proofread this. These areas seem to be lacking in that respect. And the rest of your comments ought to focus on, did they do a good description of the organization? Do they have all the information they ought to have? Ergo, what was in the lesson? Did they do a good needs statement? Is it focused on the need in the community? And is the project description understandable, logical, and leads you where you think you need to go? The other thing to know also about project descriptions is the better you write it and the more numeric it is and the more quantifiable it is, the easier it is for you to write your evaluation. You'll get to the evaluation section and you'll realize, oh my God, I didn't put any numbers in. How am I supposed to evaluate it? Then you're going to have to go back into your project description and add those numbers in. Okay, so as far as what's coming forward this week. So this week we are moving on to government proposals. You'll get to see an interview that I did with Harriet Hoffman, who is a very experienced government proposal writer, and we will talk through how you find government proposals, or RFPs, and how you submit government proposals. You will also be reading a couple of submitted proposals and scoring them like you did in the foundation review panel. You're going to do a government review panel. And once again, I will reveal to you next week, after next week, the week after, exactly what was funded and what wasn't funded. This time you have 2 proposals to look at. You can choose to fund one of them, both of them, or none of them. It's completely up to you. You will score it using the scoring sheet I have given you, and you will then post your vote in the forum area. I have in the forum section, not the forum section, but in the section of the lesson where I talk about the forum is a set of questions for you to answer whether or not you want to fund those 2 proposals. And there's some things you need to disregard. You don't have the cover sheet. You also don't have the budget. So those things do not worry about including in your scoring. I gave you a score sheet and I automatically gave 20 points to the budget. So leave that as it is. So that's your project and your work for the week. The other thing that you'll be doing this week is you'll be finishing the second half of your proposal and you'll be posting it on our forum so that the following week it can also be peer edited. And then after that you have a week to pull everything together and to get it ready for the final submission to me. Again, I want to let you know that if you have questions, things you want to know more about, things that you're not sure about, relative things, please reach out to me. We will correspond by email or by phone. And do go and look at or listen to the discussion that we had about the proposals on Saturday. If you weren't able to be on that call, it will, I think, be helpful to you to hear some of what we discussed. So onward, and you'll pretty soon be done with week 9 and we'll be on to week 10. Take care.